Hi everybody, I am Elijah, that's my name. Hi, see, he waved, thanks everyone. So my name's Elijah, and I, just a teeny bit, before we get into this, I wanted to have a moment of silence, because today is actually the National Day of Remembrance for Aborted Children. So we're just going to have a quick moment of silence for that, and then we'll get everything started. All right. All right, cool. So thank you for that. When I was originally told that we should do that, I was like, oh, that's a great idea. How long should it be? Should I make it like 2 minutes? How weird. But so I went with like 14 seconds. Don't know how you felt about that, but that's where it was. Okay, so the second thing I want to say before we jump right in is one of the major sponsors of this event is Obria. A little bit about them. Obria is helping pro-life centers across the U.S. save more babies, serve more women, and effectively build a more life-affirming society for all of us. They've developed a custom smartphone app that makes it easier and less intimidating for women to connect with doctors and medical staff. Women can find refuge at Obria clinics for all of their medical needs beyond crisis pregnancies, which has allowed their clinics to diversify revenue streams through grants, insurance reimbursement, and benefactor support. It says to see what it's like to work with Obria by visiting their booth or go over to obriagroup.com. So a big thanks to them because they are one of the major sponsors for this. Yes. So I am from Buffalo, so it took me forever to get here. I think I started about 8 o'clock Buffalo time, which were 3 hours ahead, so 8, 6, 5, 4. You know how the math works. So I was flying basically all day, and then I get in here, and then there was a little get-together with some of the speakers. And when we were on our way back to, when after that was done, we get into the Uber, and Herb, where are you at? There you are. Herb goes, talking to the Uber driver, she goes, how do you feel about legalized abortion? Like right up, everybody's having a normal conversation, and she just straight up just says that. I was like, that's hilarious. The Uber driver didn't actually know what it was, but I was curious as to see how, had he known how Herb would have done that, like gone in and done that persuasion, because a lot of what I'm interested in now is persuasion. And how to get people to think and do what I want them to think and do. Unfortunately, it sounds bad when I say it like that, but that's kind of what we all want, right? I want to be able to convince you to believe like I do because I believe what I believe is right. And so what I've been doing lately is I've been looking into the methodology of persuasion. And there are a variety of things that push people to change their mind on something. The first one would be like evidence and argument. You know how that usually works into it. Then there's also their moral foundations, which that's a big topic. I'm not going to cover all of that now because I don't have a ton of time. And then there's also social pressure. So like we have the evidence and arguments. This is the way that people usually think that we should form our beliefs, right? But we know that that's not actually the case. If my thought when I first started this pro-life stuff, which actually wasn't that long ago, my thought was maybe if I just throw them another textbook that says that life begins at conception, maybe then everybody will become pro-life. Or maybe if I get another person one of Peter Kreeft's arguments, maybe then they will become pro-life. But turns out not so much. So my caution there is that even though evidence and argument isn't sufficient necessarily to change somebody's mind, I think that one of the most important things that we can do is know the evidence and arguments. And that's largely probably why you guys are here. That's why we talk to pro-choice people. That's why we engage in conversation so we can learn more about it, so we can respond better and in a not terrible way. So the second one is our moral foundations. I don't know how many of you guys have looked into like moral foundations and stuff, but it's been a relatively recent thing for me. And The one book I was reading on it was called The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. And he was talking about how you can have a variety of beliefs that separate people from each other based on your moral foundations. And the problem is that a lot of times, so I'm just going to use my hands because that's how it works. So we have these beliefs up here, right? The surface level beliefs. This is what everybody debates. And then you have something that justifies those beliefs. And this is what almost nobody debates, but sometimes the good debates are about that. And then you have the moral foundations, which are like way down here, and nobody really ever talks about that because that stuff is hard to talk about. You disagree about those things, and what ends up happening is you disagree. So you have these fundamental disagreements way down here. And then what happens is that the roots or whatever grow up to a tree, and then you're talking about the leaves. But when you're debating the leaves, no one ever talks about the roots, but really we need to talk about the roots. So there's a lot more into it. I'm not going to go into it now, but it would be kind of like if I had an unsubstantiated core belief that only fruity cereals are what men eat, and then somebody offered me Cocoa Puffs, and I was like, absolutely not. Because I am a man and I don't eat Cocoa Puffs. That wouldn't make any sense unless you pushed me to examine my beliefs about manliness versus Cocoa Puffs. But no one ever does. And I think that is one of the coolest things about this whole persuasion thing, is once you get to know what the root of something is, then you have a real genuine conversation. And what happens is it's almost like I've seen this in talking to people. You talk about a moral foundation, and then all of a sudden, it's like their whole mind is like, wait, okay, I have to change everything I believe now. I went through this when I was in college, I think it was like 2011, 2012, where everything that I believed was just up in the air. And that was not fun. Existential crises and all that. Okay, so then the last one, so we have evidence and arguments, and moral foundations and social pressure. The social pressure is the one that I don't know how, in terms of an individual person, I can't really say that it always works the most for people, but we have social groups, and with the advent of social media, it allows us to become even more in an intellectual bubble, and that is sometimes seen as virtuous, which is really strange for me, because one of the things that I like most is being able to talk to people that I disagree with. Because what we used to think, or maybe not we, but what I like to imagine in my mind, because I imagine the past was better than it was that we would have, people coming together like in Aristotle days or something, people coming together and then they both were walking together, looking for truth together, and then all of a sudden, they discovered the truth. But that's probably not how it always happened, that's how I imagined in my mind. But now what we have, instead of people working together for truth, we have people butting heads constantly. And the problem is, as soon as you say something that you want, this is what I believe, then all of a sudden you are locked into that belief. Because let's say you post on Twitter or something. That means that tweet exists, and it will exist forever. So that would mean that not only do you have to admit that you were wrong once, but that you tweeted wrong once. And that's not going to happen for most people. And so there is basically, what ends up happening is there's people that hold certain beliefs, they create a culture that all they agree with each other on these fundamental kind of ideas, and then when someone starts to question those ideas, they are oftentimes rejected by their group. And so here is, I guess, the whole theme of this conference is unity within the pro-life movement. Unity, for me, is important, obviously, because we all want to have the same message. But at the same time, diversity is important too, because I have a certain subset of beliefs, right? Like I have a circle of influence where the people that I talk to trust me because I'm in their circle of friends. Someone else may be totally different, totally separate circle of friends, totally separate family influence, something like that. So I wrote a blog post a little while back, it's something like, I don't know, an agnostic furry or something was over here, and then there's somebody totally not agnostic or furry and over here. And so the non-agnostic, non-furry would not be able to talk to the agnostic furry group because they don't see eye to eye on those types of things. And if those are really important, then what we need is people to be pro-life in the agnostic furry group. I don't know how many agnostic furries there are. I don't know. The group is probably bigger than it is. Show of hands. I think. Yeah, show of hands who's an agnostic furry. Okay, so all of this is to say that diversity is important, but it's not only just important, it's vital, because what we're talking about is basic human rights. And what is happening now is we have this very separate and I don't know what word I'm looking for, but our culture is very split. And it seems like nobody can get outside of this partisan politics thing. And for being pro-life, saying that, yes, babies should not be killed, shouldn't be a partisan issue. And unfortunately, a lot of times it is. But I've noticed that whether it's just my experience or if it's actually how the movement is moving, but we seem to be spreading like a disease all over everything partisan politics-wise. And what I would love to see, not only us saving babies, but I would love to see partisan politics start to die within the pro-life movement. So the last thing I want to say is there's a guy that I look up to. I don't know if you guys know him. He's from an organization called Stand for Reason. His name is Greg Kokel. He has this thing that, he has this thing where he talks about blooming where you're planted. That's basically you're talking about, plant, sit right there, blooms. What I don't want us to do is I don't want me to look up, say, Josh, wow, Josh really he knows what he's doing. I want the exact same circle of influence as Josh. Because if we all had the exact same circle of influence as Josh, we'd be one echo chamber. We all have separate echo chambers, don't have an echo chamber. We all have separate circle of influences. And what we should do is bloom where we're planted. So if I can encourage you to do one thing, it would be self-reflection to figure out where you are planted. And bloom. Bloom. Okay, that's all I got, guys. Thanks.